Happy Friday, everybody. Let's go through the crypto market analysis. First things first, I want to talk about Bitcoin price action in the 4-hour time frame. We have it at 46,100 and some change. It looks like this triangle is really not holding up well, and it looks like we want to break down further. I've marked out some levels on the 1-hour time frame that I believe will possibly play out, and the first level below that it looks like we're going to sweep is $45,700. I'm willing to buy spot BTC at or around this level right here if it gets swept. It is possible that if you dig into, say, the 5-minute time frame and stuff, you can see that maybe this entire wick, okay, given the fact that it was really sort of a blown out spread, it was done during the weekend time with low volume. I don't personally consider this to be real price action. It just so happened to be that this was a vacuum in a period of voided price action and activity that took place in this area. Okay, so I don't really think we will come down here per se. And if we do, let's just say if we do, right, it should be relatively quickly that we come into this area and start bouncing away from here. Okay, if you look closely, right, in the price action, you can see once we bounced away from this wick, we proceeded to print real candles with real price action and volume all the way from here on up. Okay, and that's effectively where we are really coming down into and sweeping those lows over the last few days. Okay, maybe we just have, like I said, one quick drop into this area, right? Clean up some inefficiencies in here, but really I don't expect us to spend too much time in this area. Okay, so even though it looks like we're going to dip down further and further and then nuke into 44, 43, 42K, I really don't think price is going to spend that much time there. So just something to keep an eye on. Okay. Other things that I want to discuss today mostly pertain with on-chain activity as well as some options data. And you can find some of this information for on-chain data on Glassnode. They write weekly newsletters, and I sometimes read them just because I want to get a different perspective from, say, technicals and the fundamentals that I'm seeing in the market, such as FOMC meeting, other things related to Bitcoin activity or price action. And I think on-chain activity also gives us a very unique picture of looking at the market. And so there's really just two charts that I want to go over real quick. First one being the transfer volume from and to exchanges. So this is your inflow and outflow. Typically what you see is when there is a ramped up activity of Bitcoin moving into exchanges, so you'll see net inflow from May through July. That's really where the market is signaling to you that, hey, we're going to sell off pretty heavily. And that's where you see this big spike that happened in May through July during this particular price action right here on the way down. And so that was Bitcoin being brought to exchanges more than likely to sell. And this could be sometimes big whales, miners, or just big players that just want to de-risk their position. And then what you see happening in this area where we spend time near the lows, right, in this particular area is consistent. You see a consistent period of Bitcoin, not being moved to exchanges as much. In fact, one could say that the Bitcoin is being pulled off of exchanges. So it's a net outflow. And then you see a big spike in August right there of a big outflow. And what happened right around August time? Well, price just generally just spiked outside of this range. So when price spikes up like this, that means there's less sell pressure on the exchanges to hold price down or suppress price down from the sell pressure. And so then you start seeing the market sort of drift away back to, 40K, 50K, 60K, all the way to 65, 67,000. And then once again, we saw that in this particular top right here, okay, you see a form of distribution, a failure to hold above this high once, and then twice big sell-off, right? And this once again is indicated by some of the options activity, not options, I'm sorry, on-chain activity which is you start seeing that, in this area down, you see some spikes here of inflows, but then more importantly, there's actually a large net outflow. So even in this movement down, one could make the argument that, hey, it looks like Bitcoin is still being pulled off of exchanges in a very consistent manner. So even though we're down here, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to sit at this low, because I personally think that we may have, like I've been talking about, just one more move back up, fill up this inefficiency as well as this inefficiency right here, all the way up to 61, 62,000. And then I don't know, right? Do we roll up here and have one more move down? Or do we roll up here, build a base, and then start heading out into 2022? So we'll have to see. As of right now, I have a spot BTC that I picked up around 47, 48K. I'm also willing to buy around 45K and possibly lower if I get it. Okay. I want to have exposure to the spot side, not the leverage side just yet. But if we start seeing, price moving away from this low, I might also build up a levered position. Okay. That's one piece of data that I want to keep an eye on. The other piece of data is just sort of unrealized P&L, which is one of those things where, you kind of realize that in any given market, you really have a bunch of people who hang on to a position too long with certain emotions attached to it, right? You will see the emotions gravitate from a far end of the spectrum, which is capitulation, to the other side of the spectrum, which is euphoria and greed. And then in the middle, you have something like hope and fear, optimism and anxiety, as well as belief and denial. And so as of right now, what you really have is a midpoint in net unrealized profits, okay, which is, as of right now, we're literally sitting in the point where, okay, there's a decent amount of people in profit, but there's also, some people that might be in losses, but we're right there at the 50%, marker. If this starts breaking down below, then this quickly turns into a movement to the downside where a lot more people are going to be in losses, right? And the losses, the people who are already in losses are going to be in heavier losses, which kind of creates this sort of capitulation style effect. But more importantly, it creates an effect where people are going to be optimistic even to the downside, while a lot of people are probably going to be selling in losses to the downside. And so this level that we're on right now, okay, this 50% net unrealized profits and losses is really the area that you want to be bouncing away from. And, this kind of, if you look at price action, well, we're kind of right there, right? We're kind of hammering into the 200-day moving average, the VWAP yearly. So it ain't looking good here. So we definitely want to be bouncing away from this level as soon as possible to make sure this on-chain activity is, signaling to us that, hey, we're pretty darn close to those lows. We don't want to be sitting right near this because a lot of people could start, panicking. Well, panic sometimes is not really the worst thing in the world, because what could effectively happen in a panic style situation is they panic literally at the lows, sell at the bottom, and then price starts to move away from this level. And most people, once they start selling at the bottom and price starts moving up, everybody's going to start questioning the rally on the way up. And I think that gives us a perfect scenario where we might have a Christmas, Santa Claus rally where people will start, shorting on the way up because they think the market is going to head down further and further. And that kind of creates a fuel for the market to just, keep heading up higher and higher. That's one way I'm looking at the market. It is obviously possible that we just keep breaking down further and further. I just don't really see any reason why we need to head down much further down here inside of this wick. All right. A lot of this, in my opinion, was just a vacuum in price action. And I think it's a lot of, inefficiency in this area of selling, which means buying needs to kind of move away from that level. Last but not least, we just have some options data that I just want to look at. This is a beginning of December. A skew is just sort of a look at the market from a put to call standpoint. The deeper the skew, the heavy the protection and the put side is down here. And these are the different sort of maturity dates. You have 7-day, 30, 60, 90, and 180. All of them, headed into sort of the Fed FOMC meeting, you could see started to tack on protection basically at the beginning of the month. And now what you're seeing is at least the farther date maturities, which is the 180 day, is starting to drift away and up through the 0 point. And that is an implication that the market is signaling that, okay, a lot of the fear is behind us. The FOMC meeting is behind us. We've had some good selling. We've pretty much sat at the lows. Maybe we need to start, loosening up our puts and loosening up our protection, and quite possibly buying calls out into, the further dated call options or the further dated strikes. Okay. So this 180 day is a good sign. Hopefully these other maturities start dragging themselves up. You could kind of see the near term, the 7 day is the only one that looks very different from 30, 60, 90, and 180. Why? Because as of right now, the price looks like this. So of course, in the near term, you're going to see some panic in the market from the options side because people are probably still looking for protection. But I would say the longer dated maturities are showing you that it's quite possible that the market has bottomed or come close to a bottom. Okay. It is, like I said, entirely possible. We do have some spikes down here, but I'm still expecting some sort of a resumption back to the upside sooner rather than later. Anything else in the market? I mean, in terms of alts, still really does not look good. The only position that I have as per our 5K account challenge is BTC, simply because I see Bitcoin as a lower risk trade to the upside or the downside compared to alts. I think most alts are looking very, very rough over the past few days. Even though they did bounce back, they're headed right back into key resistance points, like Curve headed back into $4, rejecting it. One could say that there's a range of distribution happening in this area right here. Unless it smashes through this level and heads higher, well, then this could easily be a distribution which heads to lower prices. Okay. Avax, kind of the same thing. I would say, Avax looks small, stronger than most altcoins, but still really not that great. If you look at the pivot right here, the midpoint, which is, this previous area of distribution that Avax had before it sold off, all we're really doing is retesting that. So similar to Curve, unless this smashes above and holds, this could easily roll back down, come back into this previous, trading range right here. Okay. I think everything else similar, right? Again, Luna, same thing. This was the previous form of distribution up here in this range. Price sells off aggressively, comes back, pings right into that, key SR level right here, which is $66, and then starting to roll back over again. So what we really need from price is, especially from the standpoint of Curve or Avax or Luna, you need price to smash through these resistance points and hold. And I don't really see that as of right now. I think the safest bet for now, in my opinion, is probably BTC, just because I still see Bitcoin showing us from on-chain standpoint, from the longer dated maturity standpoints, from the options world. And like I said, the on-chain standpoint, we should be looking for a bounce here. It's going to look rough, for maybe another few days, but I'm kind of expecting maybe by end of the month, like we might head up to 50,000, 53, and maybe at most, 59, 60,000. Okay. Again, not financial advice. This is just how I'm planning my trade. Please make sure you plan your own trade and your own risk accordingly. And by the way, again, you can join our Discord community. The link is below in the YouTube description. You can always, you can always join for free. Come hang out with us in our, free channels, which is basically our entire Discord for now. I post a lot of analysis, regarding all kinds of altcoins, different news, different articles. Even, the last few days, I was posting about all the different things I'm reading and watching. For example, this morning, we just dropped an article on Near protocol, which I'm very much excited for because, this is, again, another L1 ecosystem product, right? Kind of like Avax, kind of like Solana, maybe even Luna. And if it does well, right, it can be the next big bet that you can keep your eye on. Okay, obviously do your own research, but make sure you read our article. It's on the Medium page on alpha trades. Okay, and make sure you clap for our articles. It really helps us, spread the story and let other people find our content. But other things that I often read and talk about and let my members know that they should read and digest and absorb the information. Like I said, Glassnode, they released their weekly newsletter, which I really appreciate. We wrote an article on Polygon Matic just last week, which I'm also very much excited about. And then what I listened to earlier this week was Suzu and Hasu talking about Ethereum versus alt L1s. It's sort of a philosophical debate as well as a technical one, very good. And then this thread by Kyle Samani. So yeah, lots of really great stuff. And then 2 weeks back, we released a huge article on GameFi and Metaverse. So we just released a ton of content because the space itself moves so fast that you have to keep up with the content. You have to constantly be on your toes, absorbing information. And I think our community does that extremely well. And more importantly, I think I show transparency in our 5K account like no one else does. Okay. I literally show screenshots of exactly what I'm doing, the dollar amount, the live trades that I take through the day on video. And I don't think anybody does this as well as our community, because anyone can talk about how bullish and bearish things are. Anybody can post, their P&L or fake P&L or whatever, but no one does it for you live. No one does it with real screenshots of real P&Ls. And so you could see me, go through the losses, go through the profits, all through the 5K challenge account. And this is a challenge that we've been doing the entire year. At present moment, I think we're currently sitting somewhere around $25,500, starting off with 5,000 at the beginning of the year. Okay, so I believe, we've done a pretty good job. We're going to continue this challenge, also headed into 2022. So make sure you guys come join our Discord, come hang out with us. All right. Really nothing else I want to talk about. I went over everything that I feel is of importance. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Let's kick ass next week in the market. Come join our Discord channel, hit the thumbs up on the YouTube video. Talk to you all soon, and